Hey everybody, today we're talking the Dark Phoenix movie. Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I am your host, Brent, and today we're talking about the Dark Phoenix movie. Now, I know this review is really late. The movie came out in June. I did not get a chance to see it then. I went on travel in July thinking, oh, I've got 2 weeks to do anything I need to do, It's like see Dark Phoenix by myself. I can do that. Nope, this film was like pulled from theaters within 2 to 3 weeks. This bombed so badly. And it's apparent. I pre-ordered it and watched it just now on my hurricane day, thanks to Dorian. And man, oh man, was this film just this is not the way the X-Men needed to go out. The final battle of the Fox X-Men film of the Fox X-Men series takes place on the train, on top of a train. Literally, like, that's it. And the villain, Jessica Chastain is in this movie as the villain. Her name is spoken once, her character's name. Her reasonings are not given, they're not fleshed out, they're not even existent, barely. So it's just a really weird, awkward movie. And for the movie to be written and directed by Simon Kinberg, who's been one of the producers of the X-Men franchise since X1 back in 2001, 19 years later, for him to still not have a good grasp of what Dark Phoenix is, what the Phoenix Force is, and how to adapt this storyline, which is heralded as one of the greatest stories in comics, 40 years later after it came out in the 1970s, is just an atrocious disrespect to the source material and to the X-Men themselves. And it's clear now that after 2 tries, Simon Kinberg has been a producer of X3, where they had the Dark Phoenix storyline originally, and they mangled that and ruined that, and then they have a movie called Dark Phoenix, and for him to basically do the same thing and mangle that as well it just proves that he was probably never really a fan of the X-Men movies. It was just maybe the most important thing in his career that made him the most money, that he was the most successful, his most successful projects, and that's all maybe the X-Men were to him. I may be speaking out of turn, but there's no way that you do it like this. So let's back up a little bit. Dark Phoenix is a character, a version of a character, which was come up with in the 1970s from Chris Claremont's brain. And basically, Jean Grey, Marvel Girl, who we had known in the X-Men movies, had basically like telepathic and telekinetic powers. In the comics, she gets imbued with what is called the Phoenix Force. And she uses it for a long time, like a number of years, and then has like a green and white costume and stuff like that. She's got new powers, like she's basically a god at that point. It's more than just telekinesis and like mind reading, telepathy, stuff like that. It's a lot more to it. Then she gets like some sort of mind control from the Hellfire Club, which were never introduced in any of these films at all. Were they the first movie? They had White Queen in the first movie, but were they the Hellfire Club? It's not clear. Anyway, this guy Mastermind plays with Jean's brain, and in doing that, he unlocks the Phoenix Force entity itself within Jean, who had been keeping it at bay, and then the Phoenix Force takes over her body, and she becomes Dark Phoenix, and that's what the X-Men have to battle and stuff. There's some other stuff in there. The Shi'ar come in. They're this alien race who's no, we know the Phoenix. It's a destructive force across the galaxy, but it can also create life. But it's got a destructive streak, and you need to, we need to kill Jean in order to trap the Phoenix Force in the M'Kraan crystal. Honestly, a lot of this that's coming out of my mouth is coming from the '90s cartoon series, which did a way better job, adapting the Phoenix Saga than anything that's ever been put on film so far. So if you want to go read or watch what really happened in the Phoenix look up these old X-Men cartoons from the 90s, because they did a pretty good job of like encapsulating everything. So what they did here, you can't do the Phoenix in one film. There's no way. But they try. Every time they try. They tried in X3. You know, you had at the end of X2, like Jean died, and you had this flame in the water at the end of X2, and then X3 she comes back and she's the Phoenix, but she's like turning bad and stuff, and then she ends up having like Wolverine kill her at the end of X3. And the X3, I think it's a bad rap. I don't think it was that bad of a film, but it definitely wasn't the true Dark Phoenix movie. So push X3 aside. Now we're in the First Class universe, and X-Men Apocalypse ends with Jean like basically looking as if the Phoenix Force manifests itself at the end of that movie. Well, the end of that movie, they also ended up in their 90s costumes and stuff, like straight out of the Jim Lee X-Men 1 cover. Throw that aside. This time we're in the new X-Men costumes from Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely, which I like. I like the costumes in this film, but they're only in them for like the first couple minutes or something like that. And then they just basically wear clothes because they're no longer X-Men anymore. It's very strange. Like, you can tell that I don't actually know what the purpose of this movie was. Like, they set it up so that the X-Men are heroes now. They're, they've always been heroes, but now amongst the world, they're no longer hated and feared. They're welcomed. You know, there's something wrong with the space shuttle, and the president actually phones the X-Men, like, on the bat phone. It's like, Charles, we need your help. And then they go off and save the space shuttle, and that's where Jean encounters this cosmic force, cosmic rays type thing, and then she becomes different. But instead of, like, turning evil, all Jean is actually doing in this film is just being misunderstood, which I feel like happens with a lot of films where they want to make one of their protagonists evil. They don't actually turn them evil, they make them misunderstood. Like, this would have been a much better movie if she'd actually turned evil and they had to take her down. But instead, an accident happens, and then they have to go stop her because, she's out of control, basically. Instead of like, she's evil, she's actually, you want to take the term Dark Phoenix seriously, turn her dark, not just misunderstood. Half the time when Jean is not being misunderstood and like trying to fight off people from tackling her, she's crying in the rain. And that is not Dark Phoenix. Like, Dark Phoenix is a badass bitch. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. This film also throws away all the X-Men music themes over the past 19 years. The ones they set up in the first trilogy of films, the ones they set up in First Class. It's like, no, we don't want to use any of that. This is just Dark Phoenix, and that's it. Like, the movie doesn't even say X-Men in the title when you're watching it. It only says it on the box art because they need this to be an X-Men film to sell. And in theaters, I think it was just called, like, Dark Phoenix. Like, no, this is an X-Men movie. Play the X-Men songs, damn it. But the score here is all moody and synthy, and just, like, they're trying really hard to be dark. And you get that tone the entire way. Like, the X-Men are breaking apart. They don't like each other. There's stuff wrong with Charles, and Charles is wrong, and all these other things they're trying to do at the beginning of this film just get tossed aside for the Jean storyline. And it was stuff that could have been interesting as a film unto itself, like if they wanted to break this apart. But the Disney acquisition and the merger with Fox, all that stuff, just this film is definitely like a victim of the Disney acquisition of Fox, and also probably the Bryan Singer allegations with the Me Too stuff where he's like partying with little boys or whatever the hell he's involved in. And, he's disappeared off the face of the earth now and not directing the last X-Men movie. So, there's that. So, I don't know how to grade this film. It's not a good film by any stretch of the means. There are some good moments, and you do finally get to see, like, Storm talk. And she's actually pretty good. Like, the actress's African accent's pretty good, but still you don't get a feeling for any of the main X-Men characters. It's still a film about Charles and Raven or Mystique and Magneto at the end of the day, and then Jean is actually the villain instead of like Jessica Chastain. They couldn't have the Shi'ar, and that was the most difficult thing. Jessica Chastain's villain turns out to be like this weird woody alien. Like they're made of wood. They look like Groot basically, and they're just all attacking the X-Men at the end of this movie. And you could have had the Shi'ar. The Shi'ar Empire basically has their own set of superheroes, and you could have had the X-Men battling these other alien superheroes at the end of the movie, and that would have been the last X-Men fight you ever had on film before they go to Disney. And you could have done that as like a, take that, Disney, we're going to do something awesome with our X-Men films. But no, we don't want to do that. We just want to make one last X-Men film to kind of put it out there to see how much money it makes and, whatever. No, this film needed the Shi'ar. They didn't even call the Force the Phoenix Force. The aliens didn't even have a name for it. They said, "Oh, Jean, you've been imbued with a powerful cosmic force." What's the name of it? If you've been tracking it for so long, do you just talk about it like, "Hey, Captain, the Force is over there. We found the Force. The Force here, the Force there." Like, go away. Give me the Phoenix Force. So, hopefully, if they ever try and do a Dark Phoenix adaptation again in the movies, they'll actually use the Shi'ar and like draw it out and make her a complex character and let you get to know Jean, or else don't do it at all. So, first time you fooled me, second time I fooled myself, however that goes. But this is a film that I don't think I'll be itching to watch ever again, unfortunately. And it's unfortunate that the X-Men First Class series started out on such a high note with First Class, went to Days of Future Past, which was really good, and then Apocalypse, which was not so good, and then now just like the dead whimper of Dark Phoenix, and that's really unfortunate. So if I had to give this thing a rating, 1.5 stars out of 5. It's bad, folks, real bad, and that's probably why no one went to see it. So thus ends the X-Men. Sorry. Anyways, if you like this video, please like it, give me a thumbs up, give me a like, whatever. Give me a thumbs down if you didn't. And I will see you guys next time in the funny pages.